Today is 313 Day. What does that mean? It means it's a time to reflect on the beauty of Detroit, also to support WDET at WDET.org. And also it's time to celebrate the past, the present, and the future of a city so many of us love so much. The term Detroit grit comes to mind. That means a lot of things. Throughout this hour of the Metro, we have the perfect guest with us to do just that. Sabrina Nelson is an artist and educator. She's a studio art teacher at the Detroit Institute of Arts and on staff at the College for Creative Studies. And she's a native Detroiter born in the wake of the 1967 rebellion here.
Yes, indeed. And to talk about her inspirations, her work, and why she loves Detroit so much, of course, we have Sabrina Nelson here with us. Welcome back to the Metro.
Thank you so much. I appreciate being here, and happy 313 Day.
Yes.
I'm going to challenge all of my folks, those that were born in 1967. I double dog dare you to make a donation today. So Detroit is my home. It is my anchor. I fly and yo-yo myself out to Zimbabwe, to Paris. I always come back because this is home.
And you know, just hearing you talk about that, and there's a something in the water here within the city of Detroit. And before we really get into your love of Detroit, because I really do want to dive into that, but I do want to talk about what you've been up to lately, because the frontline prophet, James Baldwin, it's been just one of those things I've been continuously hearing about since it opened up for the whole entire year. So can you just talk about where you've been with Frontline Prophet James Baldwin?
Thank you. Frontline Prophet was co-curated by Misha McGowan, Omo Misha, most of us call her, and also Ashara Ekandayo, both born in Detroit. Ashara and I are Riot babies. And so we want to let folks know that the work traveled from Harlem, started in Harlem, went to New Orleans, went from New Orleans to Oakland, California, right down the street from the Black Panther Museum. Then from Oakland, California, it went to Chicago. From Chicago, it came to Detroit, and it traveled from his 99th birthday, August 2nd, 2023, till August 2nd, 2024, opened here in Detroit at the Charles H. Wright Museum for 100 years. And at that same time, we also went to Paris and opened a whole separate show for his 100-year celebration at American University of Paris. So it was an amazing journey, trip. I will say all of that.
And I just think about seeing the exhibit itself, and the interactive part of it really stood out to me. That really was, I thought was revolutionary to think about, because so many people are interested in learning and want to be involved with art and poetry and the arts in general, but they may think it's out of reach. They may not think it's something that they can touch. Can you talk about how you brought that technology into it to bring in another audience?
Absolutely. So Ashara Ekandayo is friends with Black Terminus AR, and now it's ART. If you look him up on Instagram, he does the augmented reality that's a part of the exhibit. We also had a QR code to work in tandem with our poet laureates around the country, including the first person who started all this fire, which I will say the fire this time, Jessica Care Moore, our Detroit Poet Laureate, and now our Michigan Poet Laureate, Melba Boyd. And so we had poets. You can't do a show on James Baldwin and not include these writers. But also young folks didn't know who he was or his voice, so we added the augmented reality so they could see him on top of the work. So there are several entry points, whether you look at it in an analog way or you use your device to see his actual face and hear his actual voice.
That was one of my favorite things, that any person could have a connection with the exhibit, no matter your age, no matter where you're coming in with level of understanding art and poetry. It was this one of those things. Once again, everybody could have have a connection with it, which was really beautiful. So just staying on the topic of being a riot baby, as you say, you've said a few times now. What does that mean for you growing up post Detroit, post rebellion, post riot? Talk a little bit about that.
born in the year of the rebellion means that your existence is rebellious, right? Your existence is resistance. You come with the fight in hand. You know, newborn babies, their fists are balled, or either they're open, but we come out with the fist balled, like, what do we need to do? And in Detroit, as a blue-collar city, we all have to work the line. And if you're not here to work the line, you don't need to be here. You know, and so understanding that we work in our community to make it great. You know, right now we are known as the Paris of the Midwest. And when you look around at the artwork and the public work of Blackout Walls by Sidney G. James, and, you know, what Phil Simpson is doing and so many others, Igenia, Backpack, we bring the season. You know, and, you know, with the Stacey Adams shoes and you know, all the clothing that we wear, we sugar sharp here. And that's the nature of being my age, but also being from Detroit. When you leave, you must represent. You must absolutely represent. When people find out you're from Detroit, they're like, oh, I knew it was something. So it's a vibe. And as Tombi says, Amp Fiddler's, you know, wife, Tombi says, it's the salt. It is the magic. We are the magic. We are also the spell.
Oh, man. Oh, man. I was going to say that's one thing that I often get when I'm out in another city or place. They always ask, like, where are you from? Mm-hmm. And I'll say Detroit, and they'll say, oh, okay. They just kind of give me that. And I'm like, I don't know what that really means, but I love it.
They also ask, is everybody there like you? And I say, absolutely. They are all exactly like me.
Sabrina Nelson, how do you talk about Detroit when you're in other places? I mean, you mentioned this wild trajectory of the Frontline Prophet James Baldwin exhibit. It's a traveling exhibit, and I'm wondering in these other places what you would say about Detroit in these conversations that Tia's talking about, where you tell folks everyone's like me. Yes.
Well, I speak in poetic prose. And maybe that's why some of my best friends are poets, because we understand the language we speak. When I talk about Detroit, I come from, you know, you did say gritty earlier, but I come from a very, you know, in the dirt, but with glitter. You know, it's beautiful dirt. My family's from Alabama, so we have red clay mixed in with this Detroit dirt. And when I talk about my city, I talk about the beauty that's here that built these folks who hold the city up. We are the pillars. We are the salt. We are the glitter. We are the gold. And so when I talk about the city, I talk about the art that's here, the people who are here like Helen Moore, you know, who fight for quality education. I talk about my children, Denise, Mario, and Danielle, whose anniversary is today, 313 Day. Happy anniversary, Mario Moore and Danielle Eliska and Sudani. And so I talk about my father. You know, Thomas Cobb drove a Cadillac. And if you knew, folks, you ain't gonna drive no Cadillac unless you have on your Stacey Adams and your Sweet Dobbs hat. And so when I talk about my city, I talk about the way we dress, the way we eat, the way we cook, the way we shop, the way we fellowship with each other. It is not a city when you walk down the street, you will not hear, hey, how you doing? Because most of us are from the South, and we learn to speak to you, because if you walk past my grandmother and you didn't speak to her, she'll say, did I sleep with you last night? Because I don't remember, so you must say hello. And so that's the kind of city we are. We have very old ways or old folk ways because we learned from our grandparents.
And I literally just had that conversation with one of our producers, Carrie Jr. II. He always says, you walk in every room and you speak, and you make sure that you're speaking to every person in the room. And sometimes folks feel like maybe you don't need to talk every day. You don't need to do that every day, but not the way I was raised. Having
It's
Southern
respect.
grandparents.
You acknowledge people.
Yeah,
Yes.
you have to acknowledge
That's right.
their presence.
Yes.
And so when I leave this place, I take Detroit wherever I go, whether it's Zimbabwe, whether it's Paris, whether it's New Orleans, whether it's Oakland, California. Detroit is everywhere. And everywhere you go, when you tell folks you're from Detroit, often you'll hear, Really? Me too. And then the next question is, what high school did you go to? And the first thing they assume is Cass. I'm like, no, there are other C's. I went to Cooley. You know, Jessica went to Cody.
Yeah.
My sister went to Cranbrook. So, I mean, you know, we have people who, my siblings went to Redford High School. My daughter went to Henry Ford and then CMA. So depending on who you are and where you were raised, you went to school either in the city of Detroit and you caught that iron horse. In the 80s, we caught the iron horse. So if you caught that Grand River bus, you need to be donating to WDET. And if that frontal lobe is fully developed, you know we were listening to Ed Love in the 80s when we were nursing them babies, right? And so when I went to CCS, that's all I listened to. And that was in the 80s and the 90s was WDET. I didn't even know. Actually, WDET is the first station I heard Michelle Ndege Ocello's Plantation Lullabies. Wow. And that was when Nkenge Zola was here. And, you know, I was listening to DET in the late 80s and 90s. I didn't even know.
Wow.
So, you know, that's when my frontal lobe came to. And I was like, look at this. Look at WDET 101.9. So if you too were listening to Ed Love in the 80s when you were in the studio doing what you do, you need to be donating right now.
That's right. WDET is a community treasure worth protecting. This is the Metro on Detroit Public Radio. We're speaking with artist, educator, and native Detroiter Sabrina Nelson. We're also raising funds during our spring on-air fundraiser to support our mission, to support this institution so it can be here many, many years into the future, providing you with the same kind of transformative Detroit-made programming that Sabrina Nelson is talking about. It's 313 Day, so we're asking you to send us a token of your love for Detroit and WDET with a gift, $313 to be exact.
Do that right now at WDET.org. Use the WDET mobile app or 800-959-9338. This is the Metro. We'll be right back.
This is the Metro on WDET, Detroit Public Radio, during our spring on-air fundraiser. I'm Robin Vincent alongside Tia Graham and Sabrina Nelson, and it is 313 Day. That means we're celebrating Detroit stories and how we're able to tell you so many of them here on Detroit Public Radio.
So donate, WDET.org, as well. Use the WDET mobile app. Speaking with artist, educator, and native Detroiter Sabrina Nelson. We're raising those funds during our on-air spring fundraiser. Donate 313 if you can. Like you heard Sabrina say a little bit earlier, if you took that, what did you say?
Iron horse. The Grand River bus. Come on now. You know.
Yes. And when you said Stacey Adams earlier, I just want to throw out there next week we are going to talk about Detroit fashion. And Stacey Adams were one of the things I just forgot about. And then you said it, and I thought,
listen, we had Stacey Adams, we had Jingle Boots, we had Max Julian jackets because we were sharp. Yes. I mean, we had to look good because we were from Detroit. And you know when you step on a college campus, you know the Detroit students because they don't have any creases in their sneakers. And they don't even wear sneakers. You know, they wear gym shoes. It's kind of like soda and pop. You know who's from here. Yeah. You already know. Yeah. That's how we roll. Yeah. And so just understanding style and how you wear your stuff. When you look at the old 80s pictures, you know who was who.
Man, some of those hairstyles. I mean, I just look back at my mom's hairstyles and I just thought to myself, my gosh, you guys were fly, so fly. But Sabrina, just talking about Detroit, we were talking about it just a little bit here, but the importance of artists right now, the importance of creatives, of poets, writers, no matter what, the creative outlets right now. Why is it so important more than ever to have those voices being heard?
Well, Toni Morrison says now is the time during these times of, fire and all of the things that are going on that some of us didn't expect or some of us knew were coming. Right now is the time to keep your head down and do the work. We have to be the medicine that our community needs. And DET is, like this man just said, you lower his blood pressure. We have to be the lavender and the cayenne. You know, mix it up together and have your lavender latte and sometimes put a little spice in it. And that is the duty of the artists, the musicians, the journalists, the dancers, the writers, the poets, the singers. We have to do the work. You know, when Piranha Head posts a video of him doing the work, when, you know, Wajid does the work, when we have Stacey Hotwax doing the work, when we have Jessica and Melba doing the work, you have Sabrina and Mario and Sydney and Lakila doing the work. Because if we don't do the work, if you take art out of the earth, you just have right? So we bring the color, we bring the medicine. And so we all need healing. We all need counseling. And sometimes you have to get it in the form of art. And if you don't take your medicine, we are not well.
Oh, man. I mean, I was still stuck on the lavender and the cayenne. We have to be a little bit of both. We have to be able to thread that needle very finely when we're telling these stories and discussing what we're discussing right now. Robin and I often have these conversations daily about how we're going to bring these conversations and topics to listeners, because we don't want to scare folks and we don't want to overrun them with so many facts and different things like that. But we do want people to be informed, and we want them to go home knowing that, you know, yeah, things are a little wild right now, but we do have a place that we can go. So donate at WDET.org to continue the conversations that you hear and love at WDET. But Sabrina, just continuing on once again, you know, right now there are powers at be at the federal levels that are changing things. They're changing the way that we are living our lives. But if you could just talk about how changes like this happen around the city of Detroit, Metro Detroit, all the time, and it doesn't change Detroiters.
No, it doesn't. And James Baldwin said something. I just want to piggyback on something you were saying. James Baldwin says, if I love you, I have to tell you the truth. And so he was a bird's eye view on this country then when he was talking about everything that was happening politically when he was alive. Some things change and some things remain the same. And then you have to redefine what power is. Bob Marley says, you know, what is riches? You know, what is wealth? What is power? So we need to define what power is for us, and we need to decide what we are going to do to help us, to medicate us, to feed us, to empower us, because this is where we live. This is not a dictatorship. This is a democracy, and we need to respond in that way. And sometimes that might look like a rebellion. Our existence is rebellion, but we also need to be the joy ambassadors, because we need that medicine too. Even though we have moments of grief, we can have, you know, seconds of pleasure, like Van Hunt says, you know. So let's have all of that we need to continue to make a place for those that are not yet here, and a place where they will be comfortable and know that they are loved and respected. So we have to plant seeds for tomorrow. We have to grow the right fruits and the right vegetables, and we have to continue to feed those who are hungry for what we have.
And Sabrina, just number one, I know this is on my end, a little bit more research I should have done. Mario Moore is your son?
Yes.
See, and as you know, I know because you said it earlier and it was kind of fast, so I didn't
just
think to myself.
Just put some hair on my face and look at it.
And I've been following Mario Moore's work.
Okay, I'm seeing that. I am.
Robin.
Oh my goodness.
Mario is my middle child. Denise is my oldest. She's 42. Mario, and my youngest is Sudani, who's also an artist. She just graduated from CCS. So I have 3. That is the magic number.
What a legacy.
And they're
Sabrina
all
Nelson.
artists.
My gosh. I mean, Robin, I had no idea. I mean, like I said, I heard you talking about Mario, and I thought to myself, she just said son and Mario in the same sentence. So can you talk about the future and being a creative and giving birth to 3 creatives seems to me, and what it means to continue on that creative spirit, especially with the connection of advocacy?
My father was an artist, and he could not live that life full. So he worked at Ford's all of his life until he couldn't work there anymore. And he painted signs and gave the money away because he just wanted to be outside and doing his art. And so I am living his legacy. He died of COVID in 2020. And so I had a moment of just being very still and remembering that in order to honor his legacy, I had to get up and draw. So I made myself draw to think about what my father gave me as his gift. And, my daughter at the time, she hadn't experienced death. And so she says, Mom, everybody has granddad's face on their face and I don't have his face. I said, you're an artist. You have him inside of you. I said, so you're always going to have his heart and your blood is his blood. So you're always going to have the legacy of your grandfather, and we honor him by doing our art. So it is our duty to honor my father and his father and the legacy of creativity by doing what we do. Some of us will end up in museums. Some of us will end up in books. Some of us will end up in galleries. But we are going to continue to keep our head down and do the work, not for likes, but because we have to do it, because it is our duty to be the medicine people in the way that we give medicine. So it's important to honor your gifts, your legacies, and your present is important.
Joy, truth, love, respect, honoring legacies of those who came before us. These are all things that I think we can feel really good about in this moment. Sabrina Nelson. Sabrina Nelson is an artist, educator, and native Detroiter. She's been helping us to think about Detroit, about its legacy, about the people of the past and the present and the future here that breathe life into this city. Sabrina, thank you for joining us on the Metro. It is conversations like this. These are the reasons that you tune in to WDET. So we're asking for your support at WDET.org.
If you have not given to WDET yet, do so right now. Use the WDET mobile app, WDET.org, or give us a call, 800-959-9338.